calling to order the meeting of the Reconfiguration 2.0 Committee for May 15th. And if I would call to order.
All right, Ronnie?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Ira?
Yeah.
Megan? Jordan?
Here.
Kenna?
Here.
Robbie?
Here.
Melissa?
Here.
Ivan? Raphael?
Yes.
Mark?
Yep.
Ella?
Yep.
Carol? Ella? Darren? Jeff?
Here.
Ann? Dan R?
Yes.
Davis?
Here.
Helen? Ronald?
Here.
Mark? M?
Yeah. Freezing.
Is that a yes? Carol D?
Here.
All right, Brian?
Here.
Rick? Here. Dan?
Here.
Lori?
Here.
Becky?
Here.
All right, Warren?
Okay. So does everyone have a copy of the agenda? Is that what you know?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the agenda has, there are two items on the agenda: to review the Gilbane first cost projections and a committee engagement updated plan. So those are things that were communicated last week that we were talking about tonight. So can we get a motion to approve that agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Okay. So one of the minutes circulated from the May 1st, 2017 meeting, is there a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. Second. Okay. And then finally, or not finally, we have an opportunity here for public comment. Is there any member of the public present that would like to make a comment? This is here to do it. As we jump into the meat of the agenda, I want to make a couple quick introductory comments. You'll know the presence of Dan Sullivan, next to John from Gilbane, and obviously, as you're all aware, what we're going to do is jump into the first cost projections. And I wanted to quickly set the stage about what that means we're going to see tonight, what it means we're not going to see, and how we would like to use the time tonight most beneficially to kind of move the process forward. And John is going to get into more detail about this, but basically what you're going to see tonight is, as agreed and as communicated earlier, we have one model, Model 6, which is, as a reminder, the model in which we have two dual academies. We have Oak Terrace, Indian Trail, Ravinia, Brayside, Sherwood, and Red Oak are the elementary schools. Edgewood and Northwood are the middle schools, and there's an early childhood center in Lake Thomas. That is a model that was selected for this because it has the highest level of overlap with other models. So in terms of the over 40 modular school configurations that we've now identified in this universe that we've put forth, that model has the most overlaps with others, so that the information contained in these numbers and how this work was done would actually be most kind of beneficial to advance the conversation. So what we really want to do tonight is there's several different exhibits that are going to get passed out that relate to how Model 6 looks when you look at the cost breakdown, which they've done vertically through all those buildings that I described to kind of achieve Model 6 as a first pass, as well as horizontally across all of the configurations they look through as Ravinia and Brayside, yes? Brayside and Indian Trail. So that means that a lot of those specific configurations of different buildings that apply to these other buildings are not there. Maybe we can take that down while we're sort of setting this up so we'll distract. So what we're going to do is really dive into that and get oriented. And really, we're not going to dive into the many pages of material and dissect each of these one at a time tonight. What we're going to do is get oriented to how this all works. It'll be extremely instructive. We were just going through this a few minutes ago to anticipate how the rest of it's really going to work. And what we really want you to be thinking about as we're going through this is kind of what is your kind of personal parking lot, if you like, about of questions that you have about each of the configurations or about each of the buildings, and start thinking about ways that we could either get into those questions, things that we could take out for community engagement, things that we could take back to Gilbane and Naval Hartree for further investigation, things that we could modify, etc. So it's really more of a thought process that we're beginning tonight as opposed to coming to answers. Is that clear? Any questions about that? Yeah.
also, it bears mentioning that you won't complete that work sitting in this room tonight. You know, the best use of our time tonight is really getting oriented with the methodology and the presentation, and then go home and really dive deep, you know, so that next meeting we can all bring, you know, all of those questions that we've parked, and bring them back. But, you know, I would say that it is not the best use of anyone's time to sit, and we all want to get it right, sit and go through this and figure out what every line item means. You'll have time for that, and it'll be better spent outside of here.
And we'll review also kind of how this particular piece of work, including the report that we're doing tonight, fits into the overall structure of how we're laying this out, which means the rest of the costs for the rest of the buildings will be coming on May 24th. That means we'll have a few days to keep working through that. Yes?
Do you have any copies of the proposal that you just held up?
You'll be getting that shortly.
Yeah, it's coming around.
Thank you very
It's just a
much.
lot of stuff, and before people started, you know, doing this, we wanted to just sort of get
Perfect.
clear, everybody
Thank
on
you.
the same page about what we want to do tonight. Yes?
And just to reinforce what you're saying, we don't want to bombard John with questions as they pop into our heads over the next, you know, week or so. We really want to kind of make those notes, and I don't know if it's worth, I could set up a Google Doc for the team if they feel like they want to have a place to take questions, just so we're not all of us, everybody emailing John individual questions and kind of weighing down his inbox.
Yeah, the only caveat with the Google Doc is that.
Oh yeah, we can't share. Yeah.
Well, no, we can park questions, we just can't answer questions, we can't turn it into a conversation.
Okay. So does
So just
everybody?
be mindful of how we use that thing.
Or would it be better just for people to make notes to themselves and bring it back?
Well, it's nice
It would
to
be
have
nice
this,
to-
Send it
so everybody
to
can see what other people are asking and if your questions are.
So it'll be, yeah, you can add to it but not answer.
And it would be nice to be able to start to see them as time allows, to have some answers possible.
Okay, so I'll set up a Google Doc that people can contribute to but not respond to other people's questions
Okay.
for OMA.
And you can change the settings in a particular way to discourage them.
I'm going to ask Davis for his help in setting that up.
All right, so hopefully that intro will be helpful, and I think I'll turn it over to John to jump into the flesh of the document.
Well, before we get totally to the flesh, I just want to share, Nicholas and his wife
Yeah.
had their little baby this afternoon. E-M-M-Y, so Emmy is the girl's name. Everybody's healthy at this point, so she's a little preemie, but everything's good. So think about that would be thoughts and prayers. So I get into the meat a little bit. I just want to set the stage back a little bit. That in 2009 we had a green report. We had health life safety study that was about that $150 million. So just baseline fixed buildings, not enhance or do anything. We're in 2017. We're kind of still there. We're just spending about the first 10 million round numbers this summer of that money. So when you start to see these numbers, they might look a little big, but just keep in mind, we have a lot of schools that we can start doing. There's different ways of cutting that down, different philosophies about how you want to cut that down. But this is a big number project. If you want to tackle all 12 or all 8 or all 9 buildings, whatever that ultimately is going to be, it's a big number. So it's going to require a lot of talk and debate, values, judgments, and values about yourself and the community as we move through this process. But that is just part of the process. That's part of why this part gets a little hard and a little antsy at times, because you want to find that easy button. You want to find a nice spreadsheet that just hit the button and it gives you a nice output. And it can, it's just what values you're putting into it to get the output. So it's going to take some conversation over the next few months, or next month and a half, and it's going to take some intelligent and thoughtful engagement with the community coming up here at the end of the month and the early part of June. And hopefully this data with your own thoughts and your own questions that we collect will help shape that for you. We get that feedback back to help formulate the decision you guys ultimately want to make in that early July. So just to kind of set that groundwork, that it is a big challenge and it is a big number. It's been there for a long time. Just kind of share that. Something, right? Do that. So what you're going to get tonight is you're going to get the Gilbane estimate. I think you got the email, correct, Jen? They've got the emails collected. Or no? Oh, I apologize. Just didn't come in until late this afternoon, like at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then I was just trying to get my head around it with Gilbane and those guys. So it just came in late this afternoon. I was expecting it earlier today, but it didn't get in until later today. So due to not playing Gilbane, just a lot of work was getting hashed out in the background to make sure this was at least presentable the way it is. So you're gonna get a copy of this, you're gonna get a copy of all the floor plans that correlate to this, so you have an idea what Nego Hartray mapped out, laid out for each of these configurations. As Rob alluded to, there's about 40 permutations of floor plans with all 24 models. This is the first crack at the first model 6 vertically, complete top to bottom. And then horizontally, it's gray side across all of them, Indian Trail across all of them. And then whatever models out of 6 cross-applied are peppered in to this spreadsheet. You'll see a lot of the models are vertically on here, is what you're gonna see. So you're gonna see model 1 may have 3 schools, model 4 may have 5 schools, you'll see what schools configurations we could cross-apply. The only one that's totaled up though is number 6, because that is a top-down evaluation. What was the other thing? There are things within these, especially like number 6. I'll just talk about number 6 for a minute. It does have a new admin center, so you do see about $10 million for an admin center. Is that needed? That's a debate. That's part of the discussions that you guys as a collective are going to need to come up with. Part of your values, is that worth that return on investment for you? There's a FF&E, it's still kind of a generic number. These are still generic approaches. These aren't vetted numbers, meaning FF&E was not, it's probably the easiest, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So that was not scaled down to necessarily the model. Gilbane still had it as, well, that school's got 19 rooms and 19 rooms need furniture. And that may not be the case. Finally, maybe 17 of them need full furniture and 2 of them need, a desk and some chairs because it's the type of room. So that level of evaluation is going to happen closer to the end of the month. We have all configurations. We'll go through every one of them in the background to make sure we try to capture all that out. What I call operational numbers, they're not value numbers. It's like you don't need that many classrooms of furniture, take that out. We'll note it all, but I'm just letting you know that's kind of what's going to happen towards the end of the month. And then that's the package ultimately you would get. I believe those are the numbers you'd want to be able to use and talk to the community about. They're not hard and fast numbers. They are not referendum numbers. They are estimates. They're budget numbers, they're relative references between each other, and they are solid estimates, but they're not a budget, they're not a referendum number. They need further vetting, and that's what happens over the course of the summer. That's when those numbers get further vetted down by whatever you present to the board and whatever details the board wants to see out of that. You start putting boundaries, you start putting other things into that, transportation and how that impacts everything and the ins and outs of all those values. That's when that process will be tightened and tightened and tightened. Contingency numbers in here are still a little high. Not high relative to the process, they're where they should be for the process, but those get tightened up as this process gets tightened along. So you may see 13%, they come down a little bit, like for, 13 is your design build sit. That number will come down as we further along the design. Our contingency is still sitting around, I think, 8 or 9%, if I'm not mistaken, on the owner side.
For construction/owner contingency is at 90% right now.
So those numbers will tighten up as we get tighter on the actual design in the process. So I don't want you to forget about those numbers. They are here. They're here for our visual. They're here as points of reference. But that is all part of the process. It's not that they're there to make in a number to make us all feel better or get high numbers. They're all part of that process. But we got to tighten up as we move forward. If you tighten up too tight here, you're going back out later in and having to inflate again. You don't want to be doing this with your numbers.
So John, is it fair to say then that what we're looking at here is not, it's basically, if you take the configurations that we're asking for modeling, and you apply a consistent and sort of basic set of assumptions across all of them, this is the kind of output you're going to get. A lot more thought and refinement takes to get to the real number that we should be thinking of as the number. But in the effort of maintaining transparency and consistency and honoring the process we've committed to from the beginning, this is the necessary steps. That's why we're taking some pains to explain it, so it doesn't look like, so people understand what each set of numbers should mean and shouldn't mean as we work through it. So we're not trying to stage manage what the numbers look like. We're trying to just run through the process in a linear way, and that means people are going to look at numbers that look odd, and they should look odd at this point.
Yeah,
The point is we're going to own it and refine it together. Yeah?
Well said.
Okay.
Last question. Like a month or a half ago, we got the numbers from Gilbane on the 12 buildings. We just improved all 12 buildings. The assumptions that went into those numbers, were those the same level of work that went into these numbers in terms of ADA and renovations, and not more renovations was part of that, but ADA and air conditioning and everything else that,
So essentially, this estimate is very similar to the baseline estimate, with the exception of it shows where additions would be assumed. So, you know, Nagel Hartrade put on an addition to certain buildings to be able to accommodate the different classroom setups that are needed. Or there was also like some site work associated with other buildings that was changed around here. So essentially, it's the same approach as the baseline estimate with additional detail to meet your programming needs.
There are some items in here that some people say is obvious, let's just take that off there, that's $5 million. And that may be an answer for part of it, but we wanted to put things in here so everybody can see the baseline of what we think everything was asked about is here for everybody to look at. And they can judge it and feel it and take it out, or say we should take it out or add more. I don't want to make those choices. Gilbane's that's not our job. That's for you guys to make those choices.
And it'll be shared directly with the board, exactly
Yes.
like this as well.
Yes, yes.
At this stage, are we at the stage where Nagel is sending in a drawing and you're pricing that out? And it's not as much a collaborative process as down the road where in a room you might suggest, well, putting an addition here and say here, or looking at it a different way to
Right.
save costs, or?
They're fitting it in where they think is the best option, where, you know, these are very preliminary estimates. Literally, our estimator was working over the weekend to try and get it done, and that's why, you know, John was saying he got it later than expected, but it's very preliminary. We haven't, you know, had a sit down with Nagel and John and gone through it and really vetted it yet. But this is more to give you guys an idea of what we're putting together, so that we can get comments if, you know, going forward. Right now, we have 15 of the 40 options or buildings estimated. So going forward, if there's something that you guys have tonight that you say, this is, you know, we should change that approach, then we don't have to go back to all 40 where we can just address it as we go forward.
And that approach isn't necessarily changing the cost and methodology they're using. It's how does it look, how does it feel, is it what you're getting back? Then we finally, you really want to, in my world, you want to do that, I won't speak for Dan's world, but you really want to do that all collectively as one, so you don't miss. You start doing it on some buildings and you do that on that next building. I would like to do that as one full approach at the end, not start to piecemeal that into this. But keep notes of that, to Melissa's point about tracking it, make sure we capture it, check it off, but I want to make sure we apply it to everything, not just partially start applying.
I guess what I was going to is explain the difference between kind of the estimating phase and the design phase.
Yeah, the estimating phase is what we're doing right now, is what you get. The, what I'll call vetting phase, gets us tighter off of that. That's kind of an in-between phase. And then the true design phase is what's going to happen in the summertime, where you're actually getting into committees, you're commenting about where additions go, does it make sense to shift it, move it, flip it. That's where you start having those conversations more in the summer than in the fall. That's not part of this process. So yes, right now this is purely professionals doing it in the back room. It needs to have the community board driving it.
Just in general, maybe you've already spoken to this, but I haven't heard it. What are your parameters? What are your general parameters, for example, on the interiors in terms of what you're leaving versus what you're replacing versus the degree of materials that you're using, A, B, C, D materials? What are the levels of remodeling that you're using for all the buildings?
So as far as materials go, right now, you know, we're making assumptions based on as a general, you know, so we have, you know, bathrooms that are going to be ceramic tile, you know, most classrooms are going to be either vinyl tile or carpet. So estimating wise, it's kind of a compilation for the square footage numbers, where bathrooms are broken out a little bit differently. But we're also, one of the difference in this estimate from the baseline one is, at the baseline, we're including flooring everywhere. And one of the notes for this one is that this is based on the green report. So if the green report doesn't show flooring being replaced prior to 2025, we don't have flooring being replaced. But we do have new ceilings, new lighting, painting, wherever there's a wall relocation, that's included in here where Nagel is seeing that right now for their design. So pretty much, I could say that the finishes are being replaced with exception of the flooring everywhere. If that answers your question.
Has Nagel attempted to keep as many of the classrooms as they are without knocking down partitions?
The biggest impact is where you're putting an early childhood room, or you're changing kindergarten rooms and you need some modifications in those spaces. You're putting a bathroom in those kind of spots. That's really the only spots that, or you're converting, I think in one of the plans, you're converting a middle school to an elementary. Will require a few shifts in a couple walls, but it's not like you're gutting the shell, the inside and redoing it. It's very surgical about which ones have to be done. I don't think any one model has more than a couple of 3 walls. I mean, in the current plans, and there's not a lot of it happening. It's really meant to try to utilize our current square footage in the shells of those square footages as much as possible.
Just a quick one, John, are the numbers carried with a load of soft costs as well? Associated with architecture, engineering, right?
And these also would be graded
And life safety. So yeah, it's very similar to what the baseline was. We did tweak the contingency numbers a little bit, just based on having a little bit more information, but they didn't change that much. But the owner cost is still being carried at 20%, which, that's one of our items that there is, if we get more information, we can probably reduce that or, look at that a little bit more in detail with where those numbers.
But yeah, these numbers are intended to, this number is intended to reflect the out the door for that particular project.
And green and HLS are broken out in the document, which
Correct.
is
Yes.
helpful when you're trying to
Yes,
metabolize all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably doesn't know
Number 6.
And while this is going on, while you're getting through documents, if you look back, it's purely all for your reference. The back page of this document that you've all seen a few times from Don, this back page is kind of gives you the reference of, you see Brayside 1, Brayside 2, Brayside 3. You can see which model that particular school fills into. And then you'll see the Gilbane document, as you see that one, that is basically being done in the same format, vertically by the configuration that was chosen, and then horizontally by the school choices across for that relative school.
Is this exactly the same as what they have?
Should be exactly the same as what they had before.
If you don't want another copy, let me know that.
Yes, this is, I just want to make sure everybody had a copy tonight, so they don't want to be questioning or guessing. I do have copies of the configuration maps. If somebody wants that third guy can kind of see an understanding of what the models look like.
Okay.
As we're talking about.
Sure. Julie?
Yes. Same as we've had before. If you don't have one with you tonight, just sort of. That's the old one. It's the same. They're the same. That's what they, it's the same thing.
Would you have like the?
Yeah, I have one that doesn't have.
Anybody else? You got 24 on there, you got the rate.
I think it's,
You got the rate.
for some reason, I took it.
24, you got it. You don't same thing. Oh.
But if you want to be able to reference it while we're talking.
Does anybody else need
It's the same exact drawing.
Yeah, it's the same, but you don't want the accurate copy.
So before we get too far away from this, this is why we don't want to hand these out at first, because we lose everybody. So what I want everybody to just take a look at this is the Gilbane document. So if you notice, it's highlighted on the far right of the page is number 6. That's the model that was done top to bottom for all the building plans in this summary sheet. Just for reference, this summary sheet is the 2 pages that's going to eventually have all, what do we have to do, 9 models will be summarized on this sheet. All this stuff behind there is the detail per Braeside 1, Braeside 2, IT 1, IT 2, is what this is going to become. Right now, you have the information for Model 6, and then Braeside across horizontally, and Indian Trail across horizontally. That's why you'll notice in Models 2, 4, and 5, you've got 4 schools under Model 2, 3 schools under Model 4, and only 2 of the schools are in Model 5. So that's just telling you that's the configurations that have been figured out already, and they're just getting plugged into place as we have the data. So that, we are not going to touch the back of this book tonight. This is getting into the detail part, what makes up each of these numbers. So we aren't going to go through that as a group tonight, just because we could be here till 4 in the morning.
But one thing that's critically important, I think you just touched on that, but it's really important is, if you look under Model 6, for example, you see where BR01 next to Braeside, there are several versions of Braeside. According to the different, it looks different under different options, right? So this one, you're looking at BR01, so not encouraging you to do it right this second, but if you page into deeper in the document, there's going to be a cost breakdown specific to BR01. And similarly in this floor plan guide, there's going to be a floor plan that goes with BR01 as well.
And
So it's going to-
BR1 and 2 and 3 are differentiated by the sections they contain.
Well, it's not the sections, it was what they needed to fit that model's program, meaning there's early childhood there's not early childhood in one. There's 4 sections or there's 3 sections. So,
I think you walk through IT, and that's a good example, maybe as we get further down, the IT one that's in this one is a good example of that.
because like IT has an admin center being built on it, one of the models.
In this one.
And it's all in this model. So if you look at IT, or IT 3, you see an admin addition being put on there to accommodate administration. I don't think the intent was to be able to have an addition to accommodate admin when the plan was kind of being talked about, but after running the square footage in the space, you can't fit it in the current space from an educational perspective and put admin there. So Don put an addition on the back.
So, John, so the cost here includes the admin center, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. These are all the costs for what is shown. So like this addition back here, it has an optional walkway, so you're not going to the gym to get there. It would just fit there. Is that the best spot? Is that the right school now? Now we know we have to do that approach? Maybe not. But his task was to put it there to provide what was asked of that model. And that's what that requires for that particular configuration.
In other words, we might have assumed you could sort of squeeze that in somewhere. No one had contemplated that directly.
Yeah,
Turns out
once
we
you
had
start
to
fitting
actually
it.
create a new space for that.
And we also had updated numbers from Kristen's group, the specials, to make sure that we weren't, because we were kind of running off 2-year-old numbers, we had those updated, so we down incorporated those, and that made that part of what pushed us. We've not had a chance to kind of look at that conversation yet, but just an example of what makes up the models and why they have some variance between the floor plans. Again, when we get into actually picking a model, we get into actually designing this, we may put that somewhere else. We may get into putting it, leaving it here. We'll leave it in Green Bay. It may make sense for the first 5 years to leave it alone, because it's cost benefit then. We don't have a buyer for this building. You know, whatever, that's gonna be all part of that conversation to have with Tony, so. I just wanna make sure you understand these documents, when you look at them over the next few days, because I'm sure you'll be done with them by tomorrow. This is what you're gonna get for the rest of the operations. You get all the floor plans, so you'll have all, whatever it is, 40 floor plans, and what concepts correlate to from a cost perspective.
I think so, and if you want to just, I know we're going quickly, but if you look at, in the same document, in the Gilbane document, if you go to page 23, you look at the bottom, it totals out ITO2, totals out to about 18 million, for the version that doesn't have the admin. If you go a couple pages further on ITO3, which you can see in the upper right column of each of the tables there, tell you which model you're looking at, you'll see on page 26 at the bottom, if you visit that incremental construction cost for the administration center, it comes up to 28 million. So as you compare these different models to each other, you can look at, by comparing what differentiates them, you can look at the individual breakdown, but a lot of detail, to sort of figure out why that is. So you really have to use these tables and these floor plans together to understand kind of what's driving that. The red on these maps tells you it's new construction.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, over here in the corner of these maps, you will see that they have, they also put on these, so if you're looking at this, you know what models this applies to. They give you some cheat notes on each of the maps as you try to cross-apply the information.
And when are we gonna get the floor plans?
Sorry?
When are we getting those? Are we not?
You should have had
You
that
have
just
them,
now.
they're in the packet.
They're in there and I didn't see them, okay.
Well, it should have been separate.
Did you get the other one?
No, we didn't.
Did that one, was there a stack going around?
Yeah, so we had enough to go around. Who did not get? Oh.
It should have been a take one pack. Did they get stuck over there somewhere?
Did we lose a?
Thank you.
I don't have
I
it.
got pictures. It ran out.
Oh, they ran out.
I thought they were coming from that way.
No, they're not.
Oh.
So patient. Guys, this is a mouse. It's like a mouse.
What is this?
Okay.
Now, I got confused. I thought you were handing me something.
So again, I just wanted to kind of, you got handed a lot of information tonight.
Yeah, really.
A lot of information. We're going to cover, Dan's going to go through the costing approach. Again, tonight's more of a, I won't say a sit and get, but it's really more about taking in the process and the data you just received. Tonight, feedback on the tools. If there's anything obvious that you'd like to work differently, you know, we can take that feedback sooner than later. I just want to remind that tonight's the 15th. We are on target for what we were supposed to get today. Aside from a couple of hours, we were on target for getting it. So that part's good. So we are projected to be on target for the 24th. That's the next big date to get the rest of the data. And then after that, the data don't. We'll be spending some time in the background trying to get you tighter numbers for your engagements. But we'll be sharing all that as it gets refined. It'll be given out. We'll get the raw data. We'll get the raw data by the 24th. Then you'll get some refinement data when that happens over the next, whatever, 3, 4 days, 5 days past that holiday weekend, and then maybe early June or June 1 or 2. Yes, sir.
But you kind of went through this quickly up front, but as we look through these things, where we're going to is, obviously we have to get the full picture, but we also have to refine the methodology and kind of where the trade-offs can be and understand those and choose the right things to put in front of the community and get feedback on and to identify what's due. For example, John mentioned that these admin centers could be at Indian Trail and it could be built for a cost for a new one of $10 million. Or you could keep this building open for longer, in a staggered way, with a lower kind of run rate for that. So those are examples, that's one simple example. Another example about furniture, which we know in the high school, not all the furniture was replaced up front, things like that.
So I just had a question on the green report in the HLS. Those numbers didn't include all the contingencies, right? Or did they?
They did have 30% in there.
In there,
for the
okay.
architect.
Okay, so we're comparing, when we're looking at those numbers and these numbers with the contingencies, we're doing an apples to apples comparison?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then thinking back, just the last sort of high-level comment, thinking back about the sort of the value proposition at the end, right? So the simplified, Dan, thanks for sharing that version that the high school team put together to sort of show where's the money going. As we review these things, as we get all these pictures in, do you feel good about where the money's going? Do you feel like there's value based on all the different priorities we've outlined from a financial, educational, and sort of community input? Do you feel like that lines up with the value we're seeking, right? So if it turns out that to keep a certain building for a certain purpose costs way more than we thought, what does that cause us to question in terms of, is that the right thing to do? Should we do that in a staggered way? So we kind of need all that in front of us to start to grapple with that. We just came up with a few examples just from this one. There's already 3 or 4 big questions that we have to answer.
And just building on that, so I just sent out a doc, and you'll have to see if you guys all got it, but if you're thinking, oh, well, that would be a good question to ask at the forums, or that would be a great question to ask at the focus groups, just make a note of that on the document so that we are also using the questions that come up for you to then parlay into questions for the forums. Like, is there a trade-off that we want to ask about, or is there a, something like that. So just make a note of that too in your notes that you drop in.
So I'm looking at this IT3 page in my charts here, and I'm actually now starting and drawn to the next page or two after that. I was confused. I just didn't know what the purple versus the blue meant on the next configuration. So one or 2 pages after that IT3-4 or 2-3. It's
So the Northwest, what?
Northwest
4,
4, WT4. Like, what is purple
Next one.
versus blue? One more tab down.
What's the page? What's it say?
Can we maybe just walk through it in general?
Yeah.
Like what it is exactly?
Yeah. So so some of those are blue and some of those are purple. So what does blue versus purple mean in the color?
Dark blue and light blue.
The fire.
Oh,
For the Northwood and Wayne Thomas? Is this the one?
You're talking about
Yeah.
more than actually this?
No, one more.
That's the
One more, which
model.
IT1 shows
You
blue.
can't see it very well on the screen, but like the
This
chip.
one's blue.
Yeah, right. Like this thing on the bottom. This is blue. This upper left is blue, and the other rest is purple.
So where you're saying it looks purple on that, it's because it doesn't have the hashes, that those hashes mean that. we're
Oh, the red
required
hash turned
protection.
purple.
So if you look up in the legend, there's
So
a.
it's the same-
there's
it's the
like a
same
red
color.
hash.
Oh, it's the same color. It means add.
Right.
It's like a dress on the internet. Yeah. Okay.
So that would be the newer gym that already has fire.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That just has fire protection on it.
Can you maybe just walk through that one and tell me if it's not an appropriate use of time now? But, because this is probably, of what we've been given thus far, the one that's kind of has the most changes to it. So just kind of maybe walk us through it a little bit. This. There's the Northwood 4, Wayne Thomas 4. There
Which one are we choosing?
It's the one he's got on the screen.
They are numbered. Let's do it now, or do you want to go through the front page of the package?
It doesn't have.
I guess I'm more clarity.
Yeah, so for example, so it looks like Wayne Thomas is kind of being philosophically split, right? And part of the building is being repurposed for early childhood, and the other part is being repurposed for Northwood. Is there any thought as to, like, is there enough, between the 2 existing buildings, is there enough space for gym, because this school now is bigger than Edgewood, right? In Model 6, there would be more students at Northwood than at Edgewood. So are there more STEM labs? Are there more music space? Is the cafeteria any bigger? Like kind of getting into
Here,
those
the
types of
cafeteria is
things.
not bigger.
Okay.
That's one of the sacrifices with it. Although you do have the Wayne Thomas, let me go back. No, Wayne Thomas cafeteria gets consumed for classroom space. So you have just the one cafeteria. You do have 3 gyms. I have to look at the total square footage of gym space relative to Edgewood. Probably be comparable because the larger gym at Northwood's larger than Edgewood's 2 gyms together just by square footage. So the gyms are probably a comparable, space is not bigger, but the cafeteria size is definitely smaller.
Okay. And then like the music rooms, and I think we talked about in our heat map that we valued, can't think of what it's called, like a multi-purpose room. So the stage and music was not in the cafeteria, but it would be in a gym or like other space. Is that?
That was still used recreations.
Okay.
Those kind of improvements were not done to any of these models. So those are gonna be value judgments as we get into the models. I don't call it the nuance, I don't want to diminish it, but those values, you gotta make sure you can capture that, or is actually being a sacrifice. Because just keep the numbers as superficial as they are. At 187 today, that's without doing those extra enhancements. So can we get those enhancements for whatever cost? And can we trade off something else down the road? So we've not gotten to that level of evaluation.
Okay.
It does look like, though, that it's delineated in the Wayne Thomas portion that you have the choral and instrumental music spaces moved over to that portion. So it looks
Well,
like it
that's
has
cutting
been.
the gym up a little bit.
Yeah, it's
So
been
that's-
delineated a little bit.
That's the only part where it is up in that
Yeah.
portion of the school.
Yeah.
But that obviously can't be a full stage performance, because if there's a wall there blocking the early childhood center off now.
And that was Wayne Thomas's existing
But
gym.
that's existing discussion for
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
While we're on this one,
No, please.
while we're on this one, because I got some questions about this from people in the neighborhood. So, is this the format that, if we decide this configuration, is this the only layout? In other words,
Which page are you looking, are you looking at this page that's
Yeah.
up there?
Yeah, this
So,
page.
Ron, I think that goes to kind of what I was asking for. So this is the one Don and Mabel has
This is the
submitted
first
today.
version draft.
Today. This is what, his first kind of vision before any collaboration. It says, well, what if we move this here? And that sounds like it's a more summer thing.
That's, once you start getting into, I'll share the experience when we went through the middle school campus version of this. Once you got the model, now you're doing what the architect, what they call charrettes, where you sit down with very specific pockets of users and how they want to use the building. And those could be parent users, they were staff, they were nurses, they were all the different users of the building. And they all had their time with the design group to go through, and there's a whole lot of shifting and adjusting going on space.
But there would still be some opportunity, to Maggie's point, to that here.
Oh,
we need to
yes.
grapple with and understand.
Yeah, no, we want to get into that more.
Kind of what these different.
Yeah.
Right, mine was less about the building, but just, so now, this one still has this parking lot. So we've added a new parking lot next to a bunch of houses and a water retention area.
Yep. That's just to get the hard space off of to get more green space for the kids. Because you are adding a significant amount of kids to that site.
Right, but you're adding a parking lot where there's a water retention area now around a bunch of houses.
Yeah, you'd be making an underground pool for the parking lot. Because you can't get rid of the
Neighbors would
retention.
love the underground pool.
Yeah. No, you have to have that underground retention there to accommodate it. Because you can't get rid of it.
Some of these rooms are labeled 2 different things. I'm on NW4, WT4. It's labeled fitness and band, unassigned and fitness. The next one is industrial art and art. Which color is accurate, red or black?
I would have to say the red is what the space that Don assigned it. The black is what the original.
Okay,
what
so the
map
black
reads
is the
today.
old, the red is the
That's
new.
like a
Current state.
A current state.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get numbers for all the different configurations
So there's
on
something.
our list. But it's going to be interesting to look at them relative to each other, because whatever cost saving we do could probably be applied to
Right.
multiple scenarios, it's important.
Which is why we're not going down the rabbit hole tonight,
Yeah.
which we could obviously do, but it wouldn't get us that far if we haven't got the rest of it.
The other thing we don't want to forget is that we're just looking at CapEx, and we're not looking at operating expenses. And each of these, some may be more expensive to build, but significantly less expensive to operate on a going concern. So at some point, you have to marry those two to get a true, kind of all-in operational and capital costs.
Straight point. Are there any other burning questions about just kind of what you're looking at so that it's not confusing or unclear before we turn it over to the very patient Dan to go through the numbers?
Just a big picture, it's more for us a big picture thing. When forums are 3 weeks away,
Yes.
more or less, we're basically going to have at that point the rest of these numbers filled out on the 1 through 9, all 9 models, but in this very general proof of concept kind of stage. And so we have to be thinking about how we portray what this all means to the community, that these aren't firm numbers. These are exceedingly preliminary,
Yeah,
very
we'll have
concept.
a better idea by the end of the month, by the end of May, for sure. We'll have an idea of how tight we could have gone through the first round of that.
Yeah.
And if we're comfortable, then we can make that statement.
Yeah.
They're at this
Yeah.
point, they're at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, right now,
Right now?
when we're talking to people at the end, in the early June, we're at the very, very preliminary
Yes.
stage of
And
that.
I'll just bring that up to the point of social media. Not good, I can't say don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
But
Please do.
please be cautious with
Please say don't.
what and
Please say
how
don't.
data is framed, if you will. This is raw data, it's public data, it's nothing to hide. It's just, I know people want to try to explain it, but in that explaining, you can start taking opinions and judgments, that it just starts to become a very big rabbit hole. It's just, I caution on trying to overly comment, overly correct. My 2 cents. Yes?
This is maybe a week or 2 old summary of analysis of 8 models from, there it is, May 1st, sorry, exactly 2 weeks. So there are there is input on operating because it says what we, and I know there have been disclaimers regarding this, of course. Are you saying this is not operative at all when we look at?
Is that the sheet you handed out?
But I think Ira's point was more, if you have a new building, you can run it more efficiently. It requires less work.
Yeah, but these did have new buildings. These are still the configurations.
Right, but it didn't, if I understood his point, right, it wasn't saying, okay, this building, has HVAC, which is super efficient, it's gonna cost half as much to operate. I thought that's what Ira was trying to say there.
Well, it's not even taking into staffing levels or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
How much, as we consider, you don't want us to consider operating now? You want us only to look at construction costs? And if we did think about operating, would this be useful in any way, shape, or form?
I would need to reset that back to now, but right now, I want you to focus on the building side, and how you want the buildings to look, configure and shape and as a configuration. Operations is definitely gonna be factored in. That's, you guys are gonna have to. But right now, the short-term task is worrying about kind of the brick and mortar side of this equation.
Probably best not, would it be best not to mix in older sets
I'm
of
putting it to
numbers?
the side for right now, because it does influence a little bit the way I look at especially a somewhat comparable configuration
Sure.
or values. The other thing is, it's not definitive, even though I've been saying, I think I've been saying for a forum, people will wonder where the money got spent, and I talked about blocks and all of that as they look at plans. However, if we don't have some degree of confidence in the numbers, I don't think we should, as the forum gets discussed, I think we should revisit what kind of numbers are shown, given the level of knowledge we have at the time. How much it's to the benefit of people to see those numbers or not.
Well, I probably mixed up a couple of words there. Confidence, I'm confident in them. It's just what stage they're at to say how tight they are. So
Well, they're not to
You could
exceed
definitely-
numbers almost for sure
You could be
unless we
talking
change
about
the plan.
Well, as long as you don't change scopes.
Yeah, it's not gonna exceed this.
Theoretically, it would be a not to exceed, it's just,
Right.
unless scope changes, you don't see want to put 2 additions on somewhere.
Right, okay.
But,
Maybe you just
yeah.
put dollar signs like you use for restaurants. So we have $4 signs, it says $3.
Well, I didn't think about it.
Look at Yelp review.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
Because you
didn't
don't
think
know
about
the
that
dollar
problem.
amount.
Well,
So
no,
it's
but I
like-
mean, at
No,
some
like
point, we may
when
want to just use a window.
Yeah.
Or somewhere, these models are within these 10 million or whatever number of window we want to talk about.
Right, but I guess I'm saying is that as this process goes on, I think we have to think real carefully about how dollars and the form go together. That's all.
No doubt.
So that it's helpful, not hiding the ball, just to be helpful.
Can you guys come up with a sort of an official disclaimer for the numbers? So if stuff starts to hit social media, we can put in like a paragraph, not me, but members of the group, the team, the leadership team, can put it in like a paragraph, just sort of insert it, just to provide people with a framework.
You mean participate in the discussion on social media?
No, I don't mean that, I meant, and not so much social media, but there's good even frequently asked questions. Because as numbers start to hit, we're gonna want to have some paragraph statement.
Well, I think that we
Which is
should
an
have on our
appropriate disclaimer.
On the 1, 2.
That's cool.
Put it on our website, that way people steer people to those.
Perfect.
Yeah, basically, everything needs to have a footnote.
Yeah.
It says at the bottom,
Yeah.
some legend at the bottom of the page.
We need to
These
be
numbers are
explicitly
very
clear about what
preliminary.
numbers are and what numbers aren't.
Yes.
Whenever we display numbers.
Yeah.
I don't really know that much about building costs, but I mean, I'm just like looking around at other schools. I was looking at a news article for Maple Middle School, where they're building a 100,000 square foot school for $366 a foot. And I'm looking at these numbers, which seem, almost the same amount. And I don't really have a way to evaluate, the construction costs and then all of the contingencies and overhead costs. So I guess my question is, for our group, our committee, who would we rank as the most savvy and the most knowledgeable about these kind of issues, so that we have some ability to filter and to understand the numbers that we're given here? Because, I mean, I just can't get my arms around it based on my knowledge.
I asked that question a few months ago, and what's one of the things that's interesting, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that's interesting is assuming that renovations are cheaper than new construction is often wildly inaccurate. So one of the surprises, and you'll see it when you actually look at Model 6, is that some of the costs of things to just make some tweaks to an existing building is shockingly expensive vis-a-vis, and I see Ken over there nodding, or maybe you're just disagreeing.
You're talking about tweaks and renovation?
Yeah, tweaks and renovation can be very, very expensive. So this is one of the sort of ahas, is that just to tweak something, now that's where it becomes a trade-off. If the community feels very strongly that a particular building or a particular site is really what they want, are they going to be willing to pay for what might look like an amazing price tag, considering you can have an entire new building for something close to that? I think that's very realistic in the elementary school space in particular. And there's 2 examples of that in Model 6 as it was mapped out here. So it doesn't surprise me, just given what I've seen.
I'm not surprised either. I mean, I think, as I've been talking with Rick over the last couple of meetings, I see the merits very much of doing greenfield buildings versus remodeling. And I think I can accept that, especially given some of these numbers. But I think communicating that to the larger community will be near impossible. Because what you just said, while I may accept it, and I believe you're coming from a good place, I mentioned this, for example, to a friend of mine whose company has done 100 million square feet of renovations on buildings around the world, and he laughed at me when I said it was more cost effective to do a new de novo versus a remodel. He said that's just not, I can't believe that. And
It really depends on the building, and we've done that evaluation. We did it over at Highland Park High School for their building B. To take down that building and rebuild it would have been cheaper than renovating it the way that we did, but the historic value of it stayed, it stayed there. And we did it. But one thing that I wanted to know as far as the estimate goes, if you do, and this is one thing that I asked our estimator to do on the next round, when we do give you guys all the extra information or the additional information that fills in the gaps, is, you know, the cost per square foot. If you look at, you know, where we're doing additions, you know, it's not the most efficient addition because you have a lot of tie-ins. But, you know, for instance, at Ravinia, the addition that we're doing is taking a portion of the existing building out to make the classroom bigger and have a corridor. It's a very inefficient addition. So if you look at, you know, that cost, it's $458 a square foot for Ravinia. So, but if you look at other ones like Oak Terrace, it's $149 a square foot. So it really depends on the building and how, you know, the components, what components need to be done. So it's not that we're putting, you know, there's a lot more detail that we're putting into this than, you know, we just kind of get, might get confusing or hard for everybody to handle to look into it. But there is more detail than what we're giving you with this, because there's more information that we're putting into it. So it's not just picking numbers out. Each school is being evaluated, so, you know, associated with the drawing that we're getting. So, but at the same time, we're also, it's a baseline that each one is being evaluated the same way. Each model is being evaluated the same way, so at least you can make the comparison between the different models.
So Dan, you have a presentation, it might help to actually let you walk through that so you continue to expound on this methodology stuff.
And really, you know, since we're just going through the, you know, the summary sheet, you know, essentially we're going to have, like you guys have in front of you, we'll have all this filled out where you have each model as a whole. So again, like I was talking about with the cost per square foot, where Ravinia is very inefficient cost-wise. Once you see the cost difference between the different schools, then you might be able to pick and choose which ones make the most sense. That even though there's obviously other impacts, at least we can see where the more efficient construction process is for the different models. But you know, essentially what you'll have is the full, you know, everything filled in down this spreadsheet, where again, you know, the tweaking can begin, because you can see, and we can talk about the items like at Indian Trail with the addition. You know, that really makes sense to do it there. But there's lots of different things like that that are factored in there that you know, once you have all that information, we can discuss further. But again, they're all being evaluated using the same estimating criteria, so you can look at them as, you know, besides like the additions that, you know, NAGO is using, you know, what they know to be able to show you how big of an addition or you know, if all the areas need to be renovated. So, you know, pretty much all the schools right now are shown to be 100% renovated as well. But once we get dive further into each school and what the need is, potentially all of them won't need to be renovated 100%. Maybe 5 years ago, one area had been renovated, so it doesn't really need the same detail of construction. So there's a lot more to go into this, and you know what you'll see on the 24th.
And that comes back to Helen's question earlier about this is sort of the not to exceed cost. This is if you renovated everything to the same standard at the same moment.
Right.
And what we're saying is there's a lot of choices internal to that are not. It's not given that we would do all of that stuff.
But Raph, in terms of sequencing and just spinning wheels, isn't the logical thing to have our buildings people on the committee attack the crux of the issue, which is whittling down these numbers before we start playing around and making decisions?
But that's what's going to happen at the end of the month.
Okay. But nothing will happen before that, essentially.
No, but I mean, the work that the work that everyone needs to do independently over the course of the next week, while it will apply to Model 6, it will also apply to all of the subsequent models, because you will have gone through the process of interrogating this document, right? And you'll be able to apply that to every model. So it's already in play. It's not going to necessarily be synthesized. You know,
I don't understand how I can play with this over the next week because I don't have the capabilities. I need some advice
Well, and
from
to
really.
To that point, Mark and John, I'm having a little deja vu back to the fall of 2014. And looking at, whatever was presented at that point, and every model was $300 million. And obviously, that was a little far afield.
Yep.
I don't know how other districts do this. I mean, so if we had given you a budget, just hypothetically, we said, okay, and I'll throw out a number that means nothing.
Don't do it.
If I had said seven.
X dollars.
If I said X dollars, how would you have gone about this differently to work with that?
So really it would be working with Nagel as far as, and you guys obviously have what you need, so essentially you're gonna have to look at what you need to cut. So,
Or is it what we need to cut, or is it what we need to build to? So if we said X dollars and we want this attribute, and that attribute for sure, and then whatever else you can fit in with X after doing those things. I mean, is that a way that other districts do this? Because I'm still sitting here and I've got this deja vu that is, we're not in a realistic place, or it doesn't feel like we're even close to it.
This is, I guess, doing it reversely.
Yeah.
You can build out what you want, then you can bring it down.
Right,
Or
but
you
what
can build it up
if
to
we did a build up? I mean, is that something that other districts did?
But we did that earlier in the process. We had the add air conditioning, kind of the menu option, if you will. That's kind of what we talked about early in the fall last year, or late fall last year, I don't remember anymore. About doing that process, about let's build it up. Let's see what we can do. And that was getting us numbers for the line items and getting us values for that. But now it started getting into how do you apply your values. We want this, we want that.
Can I try to, so I understand exactly what you're saying. Are we just taking too much time coming up with, numbers that don't relate to where we want to be, and then we're going to have to take a lot of time whittling them down? I think the challenge that I see, it kind of depends on whether you believe in the unpredictability of the outcome. So if you're saying, let's just apply the same kind of undifferentiated approach to all of them, which is kind of the path that we're on, and then you see some surprising things. Like I learned from looking at 6 kind of built out the way it was, I think we're going to come to some strong conclusions, or have to, about what we would do with that model if that was the one we were going to proceed with. Big changes. I could not have predicted that those would be the things that would be there. And so that's what makes me hesitate to say, let's try to build in stuff and presuppose what they'll be, unless we have a high degree of confidence in what those things are going to be. I kind of like the idea of waiting, 6 more days or 7 more days to say, let's look at all of it. Let's look for the outlier stuff and whittle away at that, because there's some big things you can chop away at here that wouldn't necessarily have been the things that we would have said. We might have said, well, let's not put air conditioning in every building. We might have said lots of things, but we could have been wildly wrong.
I get that, but I think there are different ways to build up, and I guess I'm just trying to understand how other districts do this, because, we don't have a blank check. Districts generally don't, and, when you do look at some of our peers, they're coming in with reasonable amounts for what seems like fairly efficient, pragmatic solutions. And so, what do you see in other districts?
So, using District 113 as an example, we had a similar menu type item, but, if they said, well, we don't want to, renovate building B, so like you could throw that out. So like if you said, I don't want to do Oak Terrace because it's newer, you can throw that piece out. So there was certain selections that, there was.
So they had the number.
They had the estimate, and, kind of going through the different items, which were selected at the end of the day.
But that's what
we
we're talking
started
about
out.
doing here. So it doesn't skip it.
Well, isn't part of the problem that, really the situation in the district itself, this isn't 113 where you have a building. What are we going to do to this building to make it where we need to get? This isn't whatever, some district out in Streamwood. Well, we have a field, we need to have a new building for more people. What are we going to put in that building? Or Lake Bluff, what are we going to do to expand this building? We're talking about closing and adding at the same time. And there are moving parts here, that this reflects the fact that we have a lot of moving parts. And that's the difficulty this district has.
But that's what the
We've had a
value is in
couple-
the relative dollars of each
Yeah, I
plan.
mean,
It's
exactly,
relative.
exactly.
We can't focus on value engineering right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna value engineer whatever plan we choose and screw down all the costs very tightly. But it's important to know that while we're looking at configurations, it's clear that certain of them are gonna be more than others. All the numbers will be value engineered later, but I don't think it's worth our time to try to value engineer it right now. It's move the pieces around and see where they.
Exactly,
where
we're
they
in the
cost
big
all
picture
general.
stage, so.
Okay. Okay, I just have a question, making sure I understand this. Okay, if you look at the Model 5, you have RA1, okay, for Ravinia. Now, does that mean that when you do that would be a different configuration than the one under 6, which is RA2?
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
could switch it around if we wanted to?
Not
No.
necessarily.
Okay.
Because depending on that program, they're different for a reason. Whatever that model had, over sections, over the special classes, however it's being utilized, is different between the two. So you can't just take one for the other and switch.
Okay, so that's why.
There could be components you take,
Okay.
potentially, that may come to light as you go through this process.
Right, because that's the grade
You
size, right.
you had asked the question, what do other districts do? Waukegan just did a massive building program. They had $35 million, 22 schools. And some of those schools made Lincoln look new. They went through, they had 35 million, that was a grant, and they spent 35 million, not 35 million, $1, 35 million. So they made everything fit into that budget, and when they were done, they quit.
They
And,
left
you know,
town?
like, some of the schools, some of the schools still have plexiglass windows that are weatherproofed with masking tape. And some of them have air conditioning with smart boards. It depends. So you've got to realize that there's different levels of
I'm thinking more
equity.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
I
talking
mean,
about
they
process.
decided what they wanted to do as a priority were these grades and this kind of a program. We can also look at it. We want to look at these grades. We can do it by grade level, we can do it by program level, we can do it by
Except we're
area
not
level.
spending grant funds, we're asking the public to fund.
Exactly, but we can make
district-wide.
our own priorities
And
about
that's what
this
we're
is
gonna
what's
do
more
after
important.
we get all the
That's not
information.
Of the forum
At all.
will prioritize. I think it's a big thing is that musical
So,
elementary.
so Eric, I understand your question. I don't know if we're hearing a clearly different answer. Is there, have you seen other examples besides, you talking about 113?
Well, that's the thing, it's kind of similar to the Waukegan example, is if you choose not to, and that was one of the things that we were talking about today, is if you choose not to renovate certain areas, we can afford, we want to get the programming, so let's get that addition done and renovate certain portions of that building, and then in the future, we'll add the AC to the area that might be more, where you can cut out certain areas if there's not renovation, there's no moving of walls. So, the west wing of this school isn't gonna get renovated. Those might be the type of decisions you have to make.
I guess what I see this process gets you, and I've seen it done in other districts, I've seen the build-up approach, but that's generally an attempt to get to a number. That they already kind of have that ceiling, they want to see what they're kind of fitting in there for that number. What this gives you, to me, is kind of like doing the grid report, to kind of use that as a correlation. You kind of get a visual of what everything would be. And then I look at a house or a car I want to buy, and I look at the nice one, I probably won't be able to afford it, but what I have to kind of give up to get the features I want to have. And that's like this, and to me, we're educating the community on how much because people are asking for the Cadillacs. People are asking, for Band-Aid on the windows. So it's like, I almost think this is part of the process of doing due diligence to give them that, give you the board, give the community that information about why we can't give you the Cadillac.
I guess the big philosophical disconnect I have with anything other than the top-down approach. What we're saying is basically we've identified stuff we'd like to do to any building. And we've given sort of concepts that sort of dictate a certain floor plan to Nagel, Hartrade, and Gilbane. And they've kind of done everything to every building all in one for one price tag, so it's the not to exceed number that Helen referenced. And then you kind of whittle down from there, so it's very much a top down. The problem that I thought we kept running into with the bottom up idea, which obviously is very elegant, how would you sort of modularize that? Say, well, what does it take to kind of do something to this building or that building, and maybe we can mix and match them and come up with an efficient kind of model. The problem is that that number changes a lot depending on the interdependencies of all the buildings, right? If you're going to actually think and do a responsible job looking at where you're going to put early childhood, specials, music, art, all that stuff, you can't do it that way. So that's where I feel like we've been caught in this loop, and we keep coming back to the top down and middle down piece. So it's not just like, hey, this is easy, let's just do it like that. It's, hey, we can't seem to find a better way or a more efficient way than doing it this way. I haven't seen it, but I'd love to know one. There is one.
I think that there is and going back to the question that somebody raised about new versus remodeling. There's some things that you can't back out of once you've started the process and gone too far down the line. Let's say you picked a solution, I'll go to one extreme, a single new middle school. Okay, once you've made that decision, you're sort of locked into that concept, and whatever that building's gonna cost, you're gonna have so much money to do the other 7 or 8 schools. And it may not be what you want in those other schools. You may have one good school, and you don't have enough to do the other within the budget that the community is willing to spend. The remodeling concept is a little more flexible, in my opinion. As you say, you get into areas and you find, well, maybe you don't have to do this at that level, and you can cut back easier and move the money around better.
You can digest it better, is what you can do, is what he's
Adjust
saying.
it better. You could even delay some of it until a future fate.
Just a process question. So they're gonna, this is great work, and they're gonna do this for all of these, right? And just hypothetically, let's say all the numbers came up to be 187, 630,000, whatever the number is, 187. If they all came up like that, just for the sake of argument, it seems like we need a step in here someplace to go back and now look at it and say, well, we think that number's high relative to what we think the community's gonna accept. Do we need to then take another step and say, hey, that number's too high, we need to go back and look at these to start slicing it down?
And some of those
exactly the next step. It's
configurations
the
will be
value,
cheaper.
it's starting at the high level value engineering piece that Ira referenced. So the very first thing we look at is first we look across at them, and then we start to tinker, right, and ask questions, and that becomes the risk.
So I just missed that in the timeline, because we were talking, it seemed like we were rushing to get this done, and I was just trying to figure out where that fits in the timeline.
This is part of, I guess, that homework we were talking about, and maybe obviously wasn't clear enough, that we want you to take this and say, okay, Model 6 has X dollars, it's 187. You take off admin, you take off, say you knock 13, say you knock 10 million of the 13 at Oak Terrace, and then you take another, that was the other big number we talked, FF&E, you reduce that down. You just knocked off $24 million, $25 million. So
But that's easy for you to do. I mean, I'm not.
I'm sorry?
That's, I mean, you're way more versed in how to knock stuff off of this. I can take a red pen and knock some things off, but I'm not really sure I know.
No, I'm asking, I guess, for you guys to look at it from a value statement, is.
But so I think one of the interesting things that we talked about, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something was, okay, so take Ravinia. I assume that when we get to it, or maybe it's already in Model 6, like to make the 3rd floor, every square inch of the current building ADA accessible is gonna be a lot more than making 90% of the building ADA accessible.
Yes.
What's your guidance on how we start to get to that level of value
Just the
judgment?
directive, Megan, you can't do it, they have to do it, but
Directive
just
is
the
what code's gonna
directive.
dictate that we
That's
do
what
what's
everybody's
considered.
realizing, they're only looking for a directive and Ravinia's a very good place to look at that, because it is so sectioned and so forth, and it has so many challenges, but I don't think anyone expects anybody to value engineer it or find those locations where really every teacher could get to the primary area, every student who needed assistance could primarily function at a very high level, certainly much higher than they're operating at now. with a certain percent less. Then you have to fight the challenge of, why is this school 100% ADA and this one is not? So, but no way that any of us can do that work for them. But they're looking
But
for
to know
exactly
which
that kind of
questions to
direction.
ask, I guess, is the.
Yeah, and that's, we're trying to hit the target, but it's not that we're doing it at all costs.
But John, could you tell us something that I think would help everybody to look at these numbers with some context? And that is, the middle school had how many square feet in it? And it was all new construction. The single middle school campus, and I keep in mind it has 5th grade.
11,000.
Huh?
Yeah, it's a low threes.
Okay, and what's 25? Let's say it was equally spent. It isn't, because you have multi-purpose rooms. But let's say it was 5, that was a 5 through 8 school, 310. In other words, your building here, we're putting 270,000 square foot of square footage into play for
And
middle
20
school students, 5th through 8th. So let's say that's about where it is.
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly.
No, but
Okay, so fine, that school was roughly, you had a $200 million referendum.
it was about 110, 120 million of them.
It was, I thought it was always 120, and I know
Yeah,
this
so-
is still
somewhere in
rough. Leaving you with 6 schools. They were different, because I think you put Edgewood and Northwood into play, and now you wouldn't have that here. But my point is, you have 187 million. Tell us how to work with this positively. You have $187,000.
Million.
If you're trying to back the math down, I think you're gonna have a challenge.
Well, the point is, you do understand what I'm trying to say. Theoretically, you were renovating with the green report, I believe, and full-day kindergarten, and I think they were all 100% ADA. Brayside and Ravinia were left in the mix. They did have additions on them, and we were doing them for $70 million. Tell me how to take that, or 70 to 80 million. Whereas here, it looks like you're putting 120 million into those schools, into 6 schools, on Model 6. Tell me how to think about that. I mean, that's my question.
We're renovating more square footage. The middle school campus, that was half of the square footage, half the fleet was brand new. So you're building half your square
I
footage.
took the middle school out of it. I
No, I
took
understand.
elementary to elementary.
So
It
you're-
should be housing about the same
But your
amount.
lower grade buildings that were kept in play were much larger as elementary schools.
Yes.
So they didn't require the same amount of addition to accommodate.
And they had one less grade to accommodate.
Yeah, they had one less grade to accommodate,
Yeah.
because that was being shifted to the middle school. So that was where the biggest savings came from, is that by maximizing
For
the
sure,
middle
right.
school, that's where the biggest.
Yeah,
gross
and I'm
dollar
sorry, I didn't
came
think that
from.
through exactly. I just got
Because-
stuck there.
That was a good question.
Because
But no,
right
you
now,
asked
this
great-
plan,
It's a very insightful question, because what you're seeing is when you task all these buildings at the same time with doing stuff, it's a little different than they're doing today. You start to run up the bill pretty fast. So that's where I
well, that's
think.
why, I understand why they got to the middle school comp. I mean, I saw them back all the way to it because of these numbers. All I'm saying is right now, 65 million, only of this 187. 120 million is going into the elementary schools.
Yes, and I think the value of that insight will be seen when you look at the 8 models across each other, because then you see, well, actually, asking these buildings to do these things adds a huge increment, and something else might be surprisingly
I
less.
still would like you, Mark, how to get.
Was
So
it your,
that, you know,
was it your
that's what
intention to show the public these drawings?
One other point I wanted to make is,
No.
you know, right
Not in
now,
the state.
we're not putting in all the effort into the 8 different or 9 different models. But once you can select, you know, 2 or 3, there's more effort to go into those, because it won't be such a huge task to be able to
Yes.
find how best to, you know, make this cost effective.
And I want to just, I'm sorry.
What's the difference? What's the next level of this?
It's digging into the details of the actual buildings themselves, you know, the ideas of, you know, can we eliminate some renovations if it's newer, or,
And it's,
you know,
it's sitting with the users. Do you really have to have this, or can we make these 2 things work in place of that? And it's having that level of conversation about it. Because right now it's kind of off the same blanket. You start taking that blanket off and strategically place it, batteries. How to cover something, not very easily.
I wanted to ask, was it the intention that this level of detail with all of these plans in red and blue and notation is going to be shown to the public in a short period of time? Because this was my business. I agree with Mark Lawrence. Nobody is going to understand this. I mean, the biggest thing that I think would help would be just a site plan of each school that shows how what you're planning on doing relates to the site. It shows how much area is left for play field. It shows where the addition's going on the site. I don't think anybody's going to be interested, or all that you have to tell them is we did a lot of work to come up with these numbers. I don't see how anybody's going to be able to follow it.
I can tell you, anything that's ever been done before since I've been here. Somebody's gonna ask for it somewhere. And it's just gonna be public on our website. We're not gonna advertise it. It's gonna be on our website. There'll be information to support questions that ultimately get asked at the public forums or engagements, whatever those are.
Yeah.
Data will be here as supporting documents. What ultimately gets shown as far as trying to just have general conversations and understanding for people is gonna obviously have to be simplified. It's not, this is too raw and too nuanced, I think, for that.
Yeah, no, it's a very deliberate process how we would, how we would try to show the information so that it actually communicated to someone something they could understand and could react to. This is obviously very detailed. You need a lot of context. We already took an hour and a half on a wrestling with it here. So no, absolutely not. It's not that the public won't have access to it. It's that if we're going to, as a 2.0 team, proactively present it to the public to trigger discussion or to seek feedback, we need to present it in a different way in order to make that feedback possible.
Like one meaningful thing that can be portrayed to people is, look, if you have a 4-section Braeside, it's a lot more expensive than having a K through 2 Braeside. A 4-section through 5, grade 5 is an expensive proposition. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
That's part of the message of this mess that we have.
And that's kind of what we're looking for from you as an elected. What values are you questioning in this? What is
we have to start digesting
that. What do you ask? What do you want to ask on this?
Can I ask, and I'm sorry if this is like a huge setback, I feel like this is maybe my ignorance of the last X number of years, because I just want to go back to what you had said at the very beginning of this, because I don't think I ever really understood, or maybe without the numbers it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I just want to clarify that idea of and I don't know if this will come up a lot in conversations with the community, but for instance, I'm just happen to be on the Edgewood one here for the renovation green report improvements. Does that $4.6 million represent work that we've just been kicking the can down the road? Is this I keep hearing what are other districts doing? What are other districts doing? Is this kind of approach, maybe not approach, but is this kind of improvement a problem that we've created for ourselves? And like I said, this is coming from somebody I've been living here for 12 years, but being aware of what happens, big picture wise, this is nothing. So I'm just,
Say that again.
I just want to clarify, how much of that 187 is kind of a historical issue rather than these are things that we're trying to do to
So
improve
cycles
it.
of upgrades that we are our papers on, that's something that really came across in the fall for those of us who went and toured other districts. And I've shared this with so many times, people are like, wow, it's amazing what you accomplished for $10 million. Or, $20 million, and then how much did HVAC cost? Oh, we did that in 2005. How much did ADA compliance cost you? Oh, we were so it's a lot of stuff that was done incrementally in other districts with fewer buildings.
With fewer what?
With fewer buildings and different programs, right? So
And the green report goes back to 09, updated in 13. So that's a past sin, if you will, of not doing that work along the way. So we'd be sitting here with maybe 160 million out of the box.
I think it's a fair statement to make that for a variety of reasons. We do have a higher floor in terms of what we need to spend to bring us up to scratch. then maybe some of the comparable district examples that folks in the public will have in mind, whether they're thinking about the high school or whether they're thinking about Lake Bluff or all these other communities around us, that a lot of our comps are starting from a different baseline than we are, where we have more costs that have already been identified but not yet addressed.
So can anyone tell if the public is getting that? Because the pamphlet, when I was out of town in February, or whatever, did that go out in February, end of February, early March?
It went out right before before spring break.
Really carried a lot of water on that issue, showing the comparisons of how far we were behind. Does anyone have any feeling as to whether that's made a dent?
No, we're segueing into our next topic, which is the community engagement discussion.
Oh.
Segue.
Okay.
There.
I've got a question of timing. So we're going to get, 9 days from now, we're going to get the rest of these, you think, all numbered out and estimated. And then we'll be able to compare across plans. And then I gather the next step is to now start to have those conversations about where do we cut. Between that date and the community forums, how far along that process do we expect to get so that at the community forums, we're not presenting numbers that are wildly high?
I think that the community forums will present the opportunity to ask questions about those cuts that we may or may not be making. So we'll be able to put things in front of the public and say, you know, this is what this configuration would cost if you wanted X, Y, and Z. How do you feel about X? How do you feel about Y? How do you feel about Z?
So you don't anticipate doing any of that work prior to the forum so that we get, I'm just a little bit concerned about putting, I mean, everyone's reaction in this room was kind of the same when they saw the $187 million. I can just imagine how the public's gonna feel when they see that number, and I'm not comfortable doing that.
No, I understand. That's where I think my personal belief is we're gonna be able to knock off some of those chunks because of just the other guys I think this group's gonna be able to collectively make. And even if they wanna capture them and ask the question.
But that's my question. So is that gonna happen before the forum?
Yeah.
It should happen before the forum. We should be doing the process evaluation on our side. And then during that same time, there could be the same kind of philosophical conversations about what are these big items that we want to consider taking off. You want to show it with it off, so it looks like I won't say it looks like a lower number, but say the admin center at Indian Trail. You want to take that 10 million off and just put it to the side and show the number as the true school side number. You can show it that way. But that's something that you guys have to collectively agree about, how you want to illustrate that data.
So do you need a group that's going to have that conversation with you? I think that's tough to have in the full committee.
Would agree.
You talked that you wanted that group all along. You've been saying you wanted a working group.
There would be a working group. I wasn't figured it would be happening for another week or two yet.
Yeah.
Get closer to that when we start getting all the numbers. That they can be in play. We formed a group now. So that helps. I don't see a real huge need until we get closer to next week.
Well, then, if you form the group now, you can do it with this Model 6. You can have that exercise.
Yeah, you can start
You
your
might get the ball
conversation.
rolling so that when you get the rest of the models, you've got some more preliminary work done.
Yeah. So you can definitely do that. That's really, it's not a cost, right? It's a process.
I think that we may just all need to get comfortable with the idea that things are not finite and things are not, perfect. That we have to get comfortable with the process, that we got to look at this and it's a little bit messy with all the information. Not that it's put together very well, but it feels that way to us to have to look at all these different things and digest it all and come up with questions. But that has to be part of the process, and we have to be comfortable with the fact that that's how it is. That it's not all wrapped up with a bow. That we have to go through this part of looking at things and trying to understand where things leap out, or where, like Dan looks at something and says, oh, hey, you do this, it's more expensive than that. Or somebody else looks at it and sees something like that. And then we figure out at the same time, we have all these parallel tracks going. We have all these parallel tracks of information going. We're also working on how we're going to make this digestible for the public. We're also working on what the information looks like that we're presenting at the forums. Meantime, they're working on bringing us the rest of the numbers and how much work we're going to be able to do to those numbers before we present them or talk about them. I think we just have to kind of get comfortable with that. That's how it is, that that is the process and that's okay, that we don't have it all wrapped up.
And what's wrong about being open with the public and saying, look, this is a difficult process?
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the most important
And if
messages
you don't know by
for the
now,
forum-
yes, it's a difficult process.
And look, here are the numbers, you know what, these numbers look crazy, and until we make some really hard, difficult choices for everybody, it's not going to work. That's,
Well, it's just, we're not gonna be able to say it's all buttoned up. It's not. That's not how it works. Like, we have to.
If it was, we'd be questioned.
I mean,
How
you got a
did get it
magic
buttoned up
box the
fast
first
without
go
sharing?
around, and everybody was pissed off about it. So now we're gonna be open about what a mess it is.
It's the world's worst kept secret.
Yeah.
But
Like, I know
Well, it
for
is a
each building you
secret.
have exactly what's happening. If you do a summary page for the whole model that shows this much is being spent on AC, this much is being spent on whatever. And then in that summary page would be really useful. And actually, if you get onto one page, that would be great. And if you could list like the new construction, like how many classrooms are being added and for what purpose, that would be really useful in terms of looking at it and thinking, okay, what are we getting in this particular
So
model?
Dan, what you're saying is a little bit like the finished product for the high school.
Right,
Start getting people used to looking at,
Right.
this is what it looks like, these are
Right.
the fields,
I mean-
this is where the money's going.
I hate to say this, but if I saw something and said it's $25 million for AC, looking across all these models, well, I might make a very difficult decision and say, maybe we don't do AC. So it'd be good just to know what that is.
Yeah. I think it's important to be able to compare so that we
Yeah.
don't get lost. Because I think, look, I think it's very obvious, and I put myself in the group of people that can't look at all this stuff and identify all the questions that someone with a background in buildings would be able to do. So I recognize it's frustrating for a lot of people, myself included, to try to do all of that together while it's important.
It's also, I like the idea about the trade-offs and the financial, okay, here's what this is the choice. If we do this, it's gonna cost us this versus not doing this. I think it would be interesting to know, like, adding these classrooms. I mean, if it's really, adding these classrooms costs so much more, maybe there's another way to keep some of our older space. And again, revisit ideas like, okay, kindergarten in a separate building. At some point, it's worth revisiting that idea. So.
Two things. I think it's the appropriate soon, perhaps at the latest 9 days from now, to try to ask some of the people who are on the steering committee for the 113 project to participate and start to get familiar with this stuff. I'd like to do that as quickly as possible. That being said, next, it's already late. What do you guys want us to come with in 9 days? How much of this do you want us to absorb? And what is it that you expect from us when we arrive?
An understanding of that. If you don't have an understanding of parts and pieces of it, please fill out submit the questions and get them answered. So you come back educated and ready to go with the process and with the material.
Great.
And then any other things that you want to see added or accounted for, just like you brought up, the steering committees or any other ideas, put that out there so we can see when we get started sooner rather than later, or get feedback on pros and cons for other people. That's what I want to see about 20. It's kind of, I won't say it's a dead band for you, but it's not, this is more of a, you're getting information more than you're necessarily supplying it. This particular small juncture, you guys are used to really being in it, doing it yourselves. It's kind of happening around you.
So it's kind of the sort of the domain that we're talking about is questions for the people who put this stuff together. Clarification seeking to confirm, is this what this says? But also identifying things where you would start to think, hey, this looks like something we could potentially value engineer. I'd like to submit that for discussion. Or things where it looks like it's presenting a trade-off. Could we, maybe this is something we should test exactly where we should get the community's feedback on this. So it's really kind of a lot of the things that might come to your head as you're reviewing this. And don't feel like, don't stop, do not hesitate to write it and send it in. Even if you think, well, it's obviously someone else who understands this better would probably say it better than me, just say it. Yeah.
Send it in
on this
for
Google
your-
Doc.
not to John.
Your thoughts. So Melissa sent the details around. Your thoughts are important. However best you can articulate them. You don't have to consider yourself an expert to have an opinion or a question on something. Davis?
Just a quick clarifying question, and then maybe be a suggestion. I understand what you're saying about what we're supposed to do. I appreciate Rick's question. I'm not following how that process tracks with what Art was suggesting before about a small group that would be doing some of what it sounds like is.
We're coming to that too.
Okay.
Because I think that's a good suggestion, that I see no downside to forming a group that could begin advanced work on this.
Yeah, so that could be, that's what this document would help that.
But we don't want this,
Some of the
this
questions.
group can't delegate all of that to just a subset of it.
Yeah, that's my worry.
Well, then my suggestion, and people can feel free to push back, is that I have no problem with it being a small group because it's difficult to do that. But I do think that small group needs to operate in the open, on camera in the same way, because I see some real risks to a small group at this point when there's numbers making decisions about cutting out 30 million here, adding this in.
Well, they would never make decisions.
Well,
They would
That's
never.
what it sounds like,
No, it's purely about,
So-
it's about making a
critically
list
look at it.
of options to bring back to the group to.
I still think
pro
that
and
should
con.
happen.
No, that's not
Yes.
making.
But, so
Very
this is an important question because,
Values.
I mean, a lot of this discussion is because of the lingering, I think it's fair to say, anxiety that a lot of us have about how numbers or information were used in the previous process. There's a lot of different opinions about that. No one's gonna come up with a perfect solution. So I guess David, your proposal is.
That's a proposal.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody will come, but just do it.
Overdo the transparency at this particular point, because these things are among the more sensitive issues that the community will. that
We have to
members of the
build as
community
much
jump on.
confidence in the process at every stage.
Well, and there's
Since
there's two levels of value engineering. Right now, we're talking about just taking administration out of the mix or something along those lines. That's different than the value engineering that 113 did when they put up the ugly concrete wall instead of a fancy brick thing. It saved a huge amount of money, so it was a really good thing to have done, but it wasn't as pretty. So that's a different category of
That's
value
the summer
engineering.
work that he's done, is that, Joe?
I don't think we're anywhere near doing that kind of value engineering.
This is about educational delivery, about administrative operation of the district. It's like admin should be here, not here, for $20 million difference. This group can have some input and make this.
But the public needs to be able to come to its own conclusion about the transparency, how
Right.
any discussion took place, how any decisions were made.
Totally
So
support
that's why
this.
we want to maintain a really clear view to how all our numbers are changing over time as we do any kind of refinement.
So I don't want to take
This
issue
is somebody
with
who's
what.
We've heard about 12 times, well, we can cut the $10 million admin. Why don't we just cut the
Well,
$10 million
We
need to look at everything.
admin? I mean, as a first thought,
And keeping, and, you know,
keeping in here.
just pursuing that example a little bit further, it also bears mentioning that keeping the administration in this building doesn't cost money.
Right, you can't sell it, you can't get tax revenue.
So, it's a conversation, it's one among many conversations. I mean, that's why I think there's no downside to identifying the people who want to participate in the small group. But I would also say that with all of the models, I hope that the expectation will be that everyone will take each of them home as we get that information and apply that same kind of rigor and pressure and bring it back. And then, you know, the conversation will probably be easier and more productive with a small group in public. But we should all be collaborating on this process.
Can we seek volunteers or self-identifying members?
Well, just one thing before you choose or open that process up, is that while I agree that the process has to be, shouldn't be controversial, shouldn't be suspicious, shouldn't be resonant of stuff that has happened in the past that actually I never really experienced it in terms of my personal or a lot of people's objections to the reconfiguration, but I do think confidence in the product. I'd like to emphasize that the community needs confidence in the product, that we have addressed our needs, that we have listened, that we have respected values, and we've done it for as little as can be possible, keeping in mind what the community, in effect, those who participated, asked for. Confidence in the product, in the end, I believe is going to be more important than confidence in the process, I think occurred because there wasn't confidence in the product. So that's all I could say, is that you can't make it all process, someone's got to come up with a really sharp product that people have confidence in.
Yes.
And that's the way to
The
carry.
process is supposed to get you to that point.
That's right,
We're investing in this process, not-
that's what will carry the.
We're investing in this
the day.
process because we believe, and we need to hold each other accountable, that we believe we're heading in the direction that's going to deliver exactly what you said, which I like very much.
Can you reiterate what the objective and purpose of the small groups is to be focused on?
There is a sense, I'll try, or you suggested it, but I'll try and make sure I understand. There is a lot of detail and a lot of knowledge that's helpful in interpreting and coming up with a lot of questions and things to probe on in these models. And it will, all of that work can't happen with every single person taking part in every single step of the discussion.
And changing
So,
week to week.
Can we identify a group of aficionados who are willing to dive in and spend more
I'd
time?
like to volunteer there in an absentia.
See, but before we do that.
Does that capture your thought, Art?
Yeah.
But isn't it important before we do that, we all take a stab at really coming to grips for ourselves with what these are?
We're gonna do both.
Most definitely.
Yeah, we're
Most
still doing our
Parallel
own.
path. This group does not replace what you do in any way.
But this group could take.
The group should follow
feedback
upon
from
the work
big-
that's
That's,
done by the
that's what I was
larger
trying to
group.
say earlier,
Not
we're all
started to work
collaborating.
before. Yeah. it
So
needs-
they're not coming to the 24th with anything more valuable
Yeah,
than
no,
what
they
you are. or anyone
should, the
else.
smaller group should not start until we've all.
Well,
Yes, I agree with that, Dan.
yeah.
I concur.
I mean, I've been grappling with this process for the last hour and 45 minutes, of how do you get down and thinking about this small group. And I guess I'm trying to relate it back to survey, all the work that you've done to reach out to the community. And maybe part of what this group is doing is, doing everything from trying to prioritize. So these are the A things, and this is the approximate cost, these are the B things, this is what it costs, these are the C things. So the community said, we want X. So X is gonna be in every model, because that was the most popular thing, you guys have done that work. The community said that G is a much lower priority, so that's gonna be in the C level stuff. And, so you sort of build each model with the cost of the A level stuff, B level stuff, and C level stuff, whatever that is. And even then also look at it in the price ranges that you did a survey about as well. And maybe that's how that matrix gets built, to sort of figure out what the community priorities are and what the cost of those community priorities are, based on the feedback you've already got.
So what you're saying is, and I like the way you're articulating that, it's essentially, we're trying to simplify and get quicker to what the whole group would endorse. It's not coming up with independent judgments.
Right.
And sort of advancing the process through, well, this small team's gonna kind of figure out how to move forward. It's more trying to marry all the different pieces that we have in a systematic way, which is gonna take some rolling up your sleeves. So this team is essentially volunteering to do additional work to help the group along, so that each of us individually doesn't have to do all of that.
Well, that's what we
Yeah.
that structure of the
Yeah.
heat kind of categorize and rank
There's
everything.
no new,
Yeah, not
new
re-
ideas,
not
new
reinventing the
trade-offs.
wheel.
Yes.
It's right. You guys have done a great job of reaching out to the community and saying, what are your priorities? What do you need? So, we've made some of those values, frankly, already. So, full day kindergarten is in every one of these, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's a community priority, and so that's it. Here's what that costs going across.
Yeah.
So, just looking at those items and trying to prioritize that in each model. So, you'll still get to the big number on model 6, but you're gonna build up based on community priorities.
And ultimately, that group might say, well, anywhere we see a new admin facility costing $10 million, we're not gonna invest in it, because the community doesn't.
That
isn't
might be
telling
the
us
C
they
level,
want
yes.
Admin center for
I don't
10
think
million
so.
if we can get away with maintaining something that we have. So, but I wanna get to the community thing in a second, but Dan,
Well, Eric's point, I appreciate that, but one thing I think we have to consider is that community input is data points, and it isn't necessarily the be-all and end-all. There's many things the community might say that the community doesn't fully comprehend or have a grasp on. And they're we get divergent messages from the community on, say, equity versus other things on sectioning and stuff like that, and they don't always coexist together. So I think we really have to, when we look at what community priorities are, I think we have to put that on the side and also look at what the big picture is.
It's all the priorities, and I think that's where I agree. We have to agree as a team on how we interpret the community priorities, because any of us might come to a different conclusion independently. But more importantly, we're also identifying a tremendous amount of opportunity for engagement with the community, which we need to do in the near term and going forward. So a lot of this is kind of coming and saying, well, there are two conflicted things that we heard from the community. That identifies an opportunity to go back to them and say, well, you said this and you said this. How do you tell us how you feel about those things in relation to each other?
In one case,
as an
they were
example?
opposite extremes.
Right.
Completely.
So that's where you have to present. So this is the iterative process.
But it's a way of organizing it, is the way I'm thinking.
Well,
So take STEM labs in the K-5s as an example. So let's say those cost $10 million each to put in every school. Then at least people say, oh, well, that was kind of expensive, maybe I need to reevaluate.
That's those
that
building
priority.
blocks they'll see and maybe share with friends and
But now you put prices to it, it's
advertise.
gonna change it.
You put prices to it and you put some priorities to it. This is what you told us, do you still feel this way? So I think it gives some level of, because I'm struggling with the organization of this and how you get to whatever. And to me, in the absence of anything else, this feels like a direction. I'm not saying it's the best direction, but that's just the way I would approach it.
So two things, so we talked about who wants to be part of this smaller group. Can we take volunteers for that?
We can, we can just put a poll out, you can respond to
Doodle.
an email to respond to that later on.
Okay.
Take the time to think about it.
Because not everyone's here tonight, so yeah, let's do that. Let's do that that way. Thank you, John. Can we cover off, in the interest of getting out of here before it's May 16? Can we cover off on that? We'll take your comment.
I just have one quick comment. Okay, I agree with everything you said. Okay, but I wouldn't put a price tag on, for example, a STEM lab without giving the pros and cons of having a STEM lab. Okay, so because if you just said, well, it's going to cost $10 million, well, take it off. It's $10 million. But here's the pros and cons of having it.
And they're even different, again, like in anything you do, there's always levels of how you do it. I mean, you can put in the best Windows ever made, or you can put in whatever. So, I mean, there's value judgments and all that.
Yeah.
But I think as far as the numbers that we have, where we are in feedback, I'm just trying to think of some logical way to
No,
present
and
this.
I agree with everything
So
you're
we can
saying.
all wrap our arms around it. That's what my mind's.
I wanted to ask whether your numbers make any assumption. Is this all being done in one phase? Let's say the referendum passes. What's the approach that you're taking to determine the price?
So one of the big factors is phasing. So our assumption with this, with the same as with the baseline, was this would happen over 4 summers. So when you look at the escalation, it's based on, a midpoint of the 4 summers. So it's a big number. It's 13.5% is escalation alone, starting from now to get to the finish of the project. So I'm sure there would be at least, probably 3 big packages where we have different, phases of the project.
Can we get that down into 3 years? That's part of what we gotta look at in this next go around.
Well, and if we're closing buildings, you might be able to do.
And different configurations will phase differently.
So the escalation.
We're going to close discussion on item 6.1.
Or
Move on
a quarter.
to item 6.2, community engagement and updated planning.
Over the entire construction process, so like getting out to here, I think it's 2025, and it's taking a midway point. There was a bunch of clarifications with the baseline estimate, and that kind of is outlined as one of those items, but if you got questions on that.
So these are good examples. Let's start gathering the questions, and then we're going to send them in, and Gil Bain will be here next week as well. Next time, he will present as well. So Melissa, you want to present the community engagement?
Yes. So we are hard at work on the mailer. We, as you all saw the first round of copy, we made some revisions, and now they're proceeding with layout. We will also route that when it comes. And I think we're in a good place with that. As you heard, we're going to be without Nicholas for a little bit, which kind of changes the shape of things on the communication side. So the group that we put together for the forum planning, I apologize that we had to cancel on Friday for obvious reasons. We're rescheduling. And John's going to be more involved with us covering for Nicholas. And, that's really the next thing that we're digging into is the forum planning, because as you can see from all the conversation, it's gonna take a lot of thinking and planning to get this into a digestible format, to really get the feedback that we need from the community on all these topics. So that's where we are, and I'll send out a new poll for a conference call to see if we can get the planning people on a call.
One more community engagement piece. We will be engaging with the board in the form of a report in the summertime, and I'll be heading up that effort. And there's some work that we can start now with regards to kind of compiling process. Wondering if anyone
When
wants
you
to
say
get involved.
report, you're talking about the final delivery from 2.0 that encapsulates the pros and cons of the models that we are advancing.
And not advancing.
And also sort of the show your work version that sort of provides an enduring document on what we found to be the pros and cons of this. Not
So if anyone wants to.
a critically important part.
So
of
similar to
it.
the CFAC, one?
Yep. It's gonna be a big document.
Super fun, who wants to do it?
Why don't you put that on the doodle poll too?
I have a question now. Probably won't be able to get it done by the June 7th forums, but it'd be great if we could. When I joined, I got a packet which has at the front of it some really good stuff put out by our education committee. It's just excellent stuff talking about former kindergarten, indoor air quality. It's outstanding material. I hadn't seen this before, and I've been paying attention. So that concerns me right there. We need to disseminate this stuff more. But at this point, we've learned a lot of stuff since this was put out. For example, in the indoor air quality, one of the most compelling arguments is they can't open the windows anymore. And they have to keep the doors shut. So there may have been ventilation in those rooms 40 years ago, but there isn't anymore. So there needs to be some modification based on that new learning. This is why I don't think it can be done immediately, based on that new learning. I'd like to suggest that we also put these documents out on the Google Doc area and look for those kinds of comment, and the leadership team can decide timing as to whether or not we'll actually have time to redo these or not. And you can decide whether or not to put them in the thing. But I think that's something we should do. We should, add the new learnings to these documents, create a new document for dual language, and we should. Clearly, the district doesn't have the resources to do it, but ideally, I would be trying to voice this upon the district to do it, because we've just lost too many key players. But which is another reason why I don't think we get it done by June 7th. But these are really good. They need to be updated based on the new knowledge, and we need to start to disseminate them.
We talked about the possibility of having a packet at the forums. Would it be meaningful to include that content?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think it could even just be 2 pages, just a paragraph in each thing, what we aspire to. I mean, a dual language academy sort of aspires to this. Indoor air quality aspires to this.
Well, I like
kindergarten aspires to that.
This approach, you get a full page or 2 pages on each of these things. It's quite a lot of really useful detail, which is why I really like these, but that's me.
No, but we did talk about putting together a packet as a takeaway about the configurations, about some of the data, or just all that. Trying to make
And also making it available outside of the forum.
I understand. But if somebody's talking to me about indoor air quality, if I have a piece of paper I can hand them, that's really useful.
They're done, I don't see
Passed
why
around
we
a graded
wouldn't
graph, too.
share them at the, have them available.
Well, they should be up on the website, but
They are,
but they may not be in a very available location, and they do need tweaks. We have had some changes.
So let me suggest that the team is taking on the community forum discussion, take that on as an agenda suggestion from them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Sounds
All right, so
good.
we've come to the end of our official agenda, and we're also coming up on 9 p.m. So, what's that? There's solar coming, so I'd like to,
I don't know if you're gonna go to this, but are we adding any meetings?
After Wednesday.
Well, yeah, because we have Wednesday and then like 2 days before the forum.
Let's see.
24th is the next scheduled, right? It was very possible we needed to have another decision-making night.
There's only one more before the forum.
The 7th.
Because you have the holiday
The
weekend there, we
5th.
didn't have a.
There's nothing planned right now on the week of Memorial Day.
I really think we
Right.
need a meeting the week of Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did that
Well,
Wednesday.
maybe the Wednesday. and
We want to put it that
week's
Wednesday to have it standing there.
We have something June 5th.
Yeah, that's the.
That's
the Monday
That's the
before. I mean,
following Monday.
Oh, okay.
Stuff's gonna happen.
So what day are you talking about?
What's that Wednesday?
Put that Wednesday,
Yeah, 31st.
31st.
31st, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I guess. You want to keep your husband?
Could we go through those dates then?
why don't we send out a poll to see who would be available?
Yeah. And we may have to have it without having,
A quorum.
well, even if we have a forum, it may be small.
Yeah.
Or just a one. We still need to have that meeting.
As long as we're not like making decisions, it's fine.
Monday, Wednesday, 31st, and
It shouldn't be huge.
Thanks, everybody, for a great discussion.
Motion.
Oh, I
Is there a
can't.
motion to adjourn?
Second. Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.